Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Beaver and today we are doing something super interesting. We are seeing if AI can make a good whiskey. Now I took a little bit of practice entering some prompts into openai, but I finally got it to give me a suggestion for a recipe. So let's quickly check about the prompt, and I will also be putting the full description down below, what I asked AI as well as the recipe it gave, if you want to try it at home as well. So let's quickly pop over to AI and see what the prompt was. So according to AI, for us to make a very good whiskey, we need the following ingredient. So according to AI, it wasn't able to give me exact volumes of the grain I should use, but it did manage to give me percentages of a grain bill. So I took that information, put it into a beer calculator to get the amount of grain, and then worked it my way back to get the exact volumes of grain that I need to use. So according to AI, we need 50% of our malted barley, we need 25% of corn, we need 5% of rye, and 15% oats. So if we calculate that all out, we need roughly about 5 kilograms of grain to go into our boiler. We're now going to follow each of these steps exactly, and I will give a couple bits of information on what I think AI is missing, but we're going to follow the AI recipe exactly and see if it actually works out. Now this is going to be a two-part video, so video number 1 will be me making the recipe, and then video 2, so remember to subscribe, will be about how AI suggests we distill the product, and we're going to follow that exactly and see what the results are. So let's quickly jump over, weigh out all our grains, get it ground up, and then get it into the boiler. Next up, the corn. For this recipe, the AI suggested 1.5 kilograms of yellow corn. This was pre-milled at the brewery shop that I bought it, but what I'm going to do now is just run it through the mill again, just to make it nice and fine, because I want to be able to extract as much as possible from this. And the AI also said to grind it down to a fine powder. So let's get grinding. Time for the next grain. According to AI, we need 600 grams of oats. So here we have a packet of oats. We're going to take this, put it through the grinder, and then move on to the next ingredient. Last but not least, we need 400 grams of rye flour. So here we have a packet of pre-milled rye flour. Going to weigh off 400 grams, get it into the bucket, and then we can start mashing in. So with the dagger all mixed up and all the grains mixed together, similar to mixing cement, I prefer to pre-mix my grains before putting it into my mash tun. This just gets everything semi-homogeneous when it goes in, so it does not clump together like the flour and the stuff that's finer starts clumping together. So with everything nice and mixed, similar to mixing cement, it's time to get it in here. This boiler has now been, or the strike water has now been heated up to 71 degrees centigrade. We're going to keep it at that temperature, and then once we are done adding the grains, it should drop down to 65 according to AI. That's the temperature we need, and then we're going to leave it there for a complete 90 minutes. Now the first thing that I picked up on the mashing in, that they didn't tell us to gelatinize the corn. Now I don't know if AI assumes it's pre-gelatinized corn or not, but I've never done a corn recipe, especially with a full mash in, that I haven't pre-gelatinized the corn. So that's the first thing that I picked up that AI did not account for. So hopefully there's enough enzymes in this recipe, as well as the corn stays in the liquid long enough to actually gelatinize and release all the starches. Now always be patient when mashing in, especially in this step here. Make sure you add your grains nice and slowly, giving it ample time to absorb liquid and then break up all the little clumps. The slower you're going to go at doing this and mixing it as you're doing this, the enzymes will start working, as well as the dough balls that will form you can break up. If you dump way too much in all at one go, you're going to end up with a gloopy mess, as well as a whole bunch of dough balls, and then you're not going to have the efficiency that you need to actually get this recipe to kick off. So add it nice and slowly, little scoops at a time, keep mixing, and it's going to be a lot less effort doing it that way than dumping everything in and having to fight dough balls and a sticky mess the whole time. So with everything nice and mixed up and made sure there's no dough balls according to the AI, we now need to leave this mash for 60 to 90 minutes. Now because the corn is not gelatinized, I'm going to leave it for the full 90 minutes. I do have my urn set to regulate the temperature if it drops below 65 degrees. So I'm going to leave it on and it's going to regulate itself and keep itself warm. I'm also going to insulate it with a blanket to make sure that the temperature doesn't drop too fast, and I'll see you guys in 90 minutes. 90 minutes elapsed, it's time to take the blanket off this bad boy, see if we have that loose grain and if everything has converted from starch into sugar. What we're going to do then is we're going to lift up the grain basket, let all the grains drain out, and then we're going to ferment off the grain exactly like AI said. So what we're going to do now is just quickly check if there's conversion happened, and then we're going to drain the grains. I'm going to put a couple of weights on the top of the grain bed in the little grain bag to force all the liquid out of it. I'm going to leave it for a little bit and allow it to cool down, because according to AI we need to pitch the yeast at around about between 21 and 25 degrees centigrade. Luckily it's a nice and cold night. This stuff should cool down relatively quickly and we should be able to pitch the yeast before we go to bed tonight. Let's quickly drain the grain bed and get this thing rolling. Well, it looks like the grain has completely converted. I don't know how much of the corn has gelatinized, but it does look like we have a good conversion happening inside of this mash. So what we're going to do now, lift the grain bed and drain it. So with the grain bed now draining nicely, just going to put some weights on top of it, give it a couple of minutes just to squeeze out as much of the liquid as we can. We're not going to do a sparge. AI did not instruct us to do a sparge whatsoever. So whatever liquid's going to be left in the grains after we squeeze as much of it out as we can possibly get, we're then going to cool it down and pitch our yeast and then let it ferment. So I'll see you guys back when it's cool enough to actually do a gravity reading and see how much liquid we have left over from the 20 liters that we started with. So see you guys in about an hour. So with the wash all cooled down, let's quickly test the gravity to see what kind of potential alcohol we have in the wash. I'm hoping to hit about a 9%, 8 to 9%. That should give us enough alcohol by volume, even if it doesn't ferment out all the way dry, so we can actually do a decent size run with this wash here. So let's quickly dump it into a beaker, drop a hydrometer into it, and then check the potential alcohol by volume. So if we spin the hydrometer here, we are sitting at about a 1.060. I'll try and get you guys a close-up real quick. So with a 1.060 or roughly about 8 to 9% ABV, once it's fermented dry, we should end up with about 8% ABV in the boiler, meaning we will get a rather decent distillation. And on the 18 liters that is left after we drained all the liquid out of the grain, we should have a decent run. So let's quickly get this back into the boiler. I'm somewhat going to ferment inside of the stainless steel boiler, so I'm just going to pitch yeast straight into it and then put the lid on, seal it up nicely and allow some of the air to escape, but we're not going to use the airlock or anything like that, so it's going to be a semi-open fermentation. So yeah, let's quickly get the yeast in the bucket. So the yeast we'll be using is a whiskey yeast. It's the AM Distiller's yeast from Angel Yeast. So we're going to pitch this. It is safe to ferment between 22 to 32 degrees, so it's right in the ballpark which the AI wanted us to distill at. I did ask the AI what kind of yeast to use. They said any type of beer making or whiskey yeast should be fine. So I've got AM yeast on hand, so I'm going to use this. With it mixed up properly and a lot of oxygen incorporated into the wash now, it's time to get the lid on, leave it to ferment. According to the AI, this should take about 3 to 5 days to ferment out. If anything should happen, I will catch up with you guys in the next video when we look at the finished fermentation, as well as AI's recommendation on how we're going to distill this bad boy to get the most amount of flavor out of it. If you watched this far, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Remember to hit that subscribe button down below. Have a lekker day.